Welcome back. In this video, I'm going to talk about mixing your Bondo properly and how to avoid pinholes. So let's get into it. Usually the first question someone has the first time they've ever used Bondo is how much hardener do you put in? Well, that's a real simple answer. It depends. Most important thing, it depends on the temperature. In cold weather, you're going to use a little bit more hardener than you do in hot weather. And I'm from Northwest Indiana, and the winters here are cold, and most shops are usually 65, 70 degrees in the winter. Doors are open, pulling cars in and out. It gets cold in the shop. And you'll end up using a little bit more hardener to get it to set up how you like it. And then you'll get that first warm day in the spring when it's almost 80 degrees and you got the doors open and you're still mixing your Bondo the same way, and you find out it hardened up before I could even finish putting it on a dent. So you have to adjust. There's no set in stone amount that you're going to be using. It's always going to change temperature, humidity, how fast you want it to dry. If you want to get on it quicker, if it's going to sit overnight, you don't care if it dries a little bit slower. Let's refer to the can and see what their mixing instructions say. They say 2% by weight or 50 to 1. Well, if that doesn't explain it perfectly, I don't know what does. Another rule of thumb, this tube to this gallon. Well, that's real vague too. So let's break this down and I'll show you how I do it. If you're new to using Bondo, mix a little bit less than you think you're going to need. That way, if you put too much hardener in and it sets up too quick, you didn't waste a whole lot. So when you're starting out, just mix smaller amounts until you kind of get the hang of it, how fast it's going to dry. One rule of thumb used to always be a golf ball size of Bondo to about 1-inch strip of hardener. So I'm going to mix this up in a minute. Now the next thing I'm going to cover is pinholes in Bondo. And I've heard all kinds of people say it's the way you mix it. Never take and stir your Bondo when you're putting your hardener in. You're always supposed to mix it with the spreader. Well, I'm going to tell you that is not the case. Once again, let's refer to this can. Step 1, stir product. They want you to stir it in the can, but then don't stir it on the board. That makes no sense. I've heard countless people say when you mix it up with a stick and you're stirring it, you're putting air pockets in it. But how is it that you're not going to put air pockets in it when you're stirring the can? I don't know of any way you could stir that can with this spreader, take a brand new can, get all the way to the bottom and mix it up properly. It has nothing to do with the way you're stirring it. Here's what most people would tell you to do. Take your spreader and you fold it over. You work your hardener in this way. And that's a perfectly good way to mix your Bondo, but that's not keeping air pockets out. If anything, I always had the idea that this would put air pockets in it because you're picking up some of it and you're actually folding it on top of itself and you're trapping air in there. But where the pinholes come from is the way you put this on the panel. And I'm going to cover that in a minute. But for right now, let me get set up and I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right, I'm going to show you how I mix my Bondo up. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but no matter what you do, you find out what works for you. This is just my opinion, and after 49 years of doing this, I kind of know how it works, how I like doing it, and I get good results out of it. So, once I have my Bondo on my board, and I'm going to use a little less hardener so I got time to mix this up and talk. Today we're going to go with that much right there. I'm going to take my stick, get this mixed up. You always want to try and scrape it off the bottom of your board too. You don't want to leave a residue of unmixed Bondo down there because it won't harden up with the rest of it. Once I got it pretty close, take my spreader, scrape the stick off. Makes it easier to clean the stick up when I'm done. Then I'll come in and I'll do like everybody says, is only use the spreader to mix it. And you want to get all the unmixed stuff off the spreader too. You don't want to see any streaks in here. If you see a streak of blue from the hardener not being mixed up, that won't harden if you put it on your panel. If you still see some white in here that's just Bondo with no hardener, don't put it on yet because that will not adhere to the metal. It's never going to harden. It's going to be a soft spot in there. And there you go. This is ready to put on. And I'm going to show you where the pinholes come from. All right, this is just for demonstration also. This isn't prepped. I've done nothing to it, but I'm just going to put some Bondo on here and walk you through my process. Now, where pinholes will come from is not putting enough pressure on your spreader when you're putting the Bondo on. And in a lot of cases, you have to control the pressure you use. So if you've got this line that's caved in, you got a dent right there, and you've got to build that up, you're not going to put a lot of pressure right there. You're going to force your Bondo onto your sides, but you're going to leave the pressure fairly light on here because you want to put that peak back in there. And that's where your pinholes are going to come from. You want to try and build that up so you got enough to sand on. And you'll take your spreader and you'll taper it off the edges, but you don't want to push it down on here. And if you're going to have pinholes anywhere in this, I guarantee it's going to be right on that edge. Now, I bet there's quite a few body techs watching this that have done their own drywall work at home from time to time on projects. And if you ever notice, when you put your two seams together, where the long edge of your drywall, where your tapered seams are, you'll put your joint compound in there, the tape, and more joint compound. And you take that joint compound, if you buy it a ready mix right out of the bucket, you're not stirring it, you're not mixing it, you're not doing anything. And that first coat, once it dries up, you'll see you got pinholes in there. And that's because you're filling it in deep, you're not putting a lot of pressure on it. You're going to come in and you're going to put a second coat on and then a third coat, nice and tight, nice and smooth. You have no pinholes in there. It's always that base coat, and it's the same principle here. So once this sets up, if I sand that down, I guarantee I'm going to have pinholes in this edge and nothing around in here. So in the next video, I'm going to go step by step and show you my procedure to fill a dent from start to finish. That's sanding the panel down, feather edging, applying the Bondo, and then finish sanding so it's ready for primer. Thanks for watching.